Well, hello, a DVR product today from FXT. But before we get into it, a quick reminder to please like or dislike this video if you didn't like it. Comment down below, don't forget to subscribe and click that little bell icon to find out when I'm uploading footage. But anyway, what have we got here? A DVR, I hear you asking, what's the point of that? Don't they come in all goggles these days? And the answer to that is yes, there's one in my one and it works pretty good. But this is supposed to be a better quality DVR. It says it can record at 60 frames per second. It can record in 720 by 576, which is widescreen. So can we capture that widescreen footage better in better frame rate and better clarity than the Fat Shark DVR will give us? Maybe. Let's find out what's inside. Opening up the box, you get a cable. This looks like a cable that will go from your goggles to the DVR, and the same sort of cable but with phono connectors. And finally the DVR itself, it's got a little clip to go on, and it's got AV in, AV out, power socket. There's a little camera button here which I presume is record, a micro SD card socket, and a Wi-Fi button. Now the Wi-Fi button is, I guess, the interesting thing here. So as it stands, you'd be able to sort of clip it to your goggles, plug in one of the cables and record, and perhaps we'd get some better footage from it. The Wi-Fi thing is an interesting thing because it will allow people with apps on their phone to connect to it and get your footage down. Real-time view of pictures and video playback through mobile app. So does that mean you can watch it in real time? I don't know. I think we're going to have to connect it all up, download the app and try it out. The only thing I'd say that it's kind of lacking right now, I mean, I can live without a screen, there's not a screen on it. It doesn't have its own battery, so you have to power it separately from your own power source, which means yes, another sort of battery coming in, which is a little bit of a pain. And it wants 7 to 28 volts, so it can obviously run from a range of power at least. But yeah, let's get this thing hooked up and see exactly how it works, and we'll find that out by using the app. So if you have a bit of a close-up here, you can see it's inside this kind of little mounting, and you can take that out, and there's a clip where you can stick things on. And we've got the AV in, and this would be this one, which would come from your goggles. We've got this lead and an AV out, so if you wanted to hook it up to a TV, you'd basically take the composite video from there. And we've got the power. Now, as mentioned before, it doesn't come with a battery or even a power lead, so I'm using this other thing from FXT, which is their sort of ones they built for their own goggles, which would give a 9-volt power supply from a USB lead as long as you've got enough amps going in. Let's just plug that in quickly and see, we get this lighting up to say it's ready to go. That's the SD card input, and this is the Wi-Fi. Flashing means it's not connected, and if I switch that, it turns off completely. And as far as recording goes, you press the button, you should find it flashes like that, and that means it's recording. Press it again, it turns off. But let's turn Wi-Fi on. Now we can go through how the app works. Let's connect to it, and I'll show you a bit of what's going on there, and we'll hook a quad up with a camera just so I can get something going. Okay, welcome to the little setup rig I've got here, and what I've got to try and demonstrate the little DVR is a quad which is going to be watching Yoshi. Got my goggles which are going to connect to the DVR, and this is a power bank. Obviously it doesn't have to be this big, which is going to power the DVR. So quite a lot to it. So let's hook everything up first. I'm going to connect the video from the goggles to the AV in. I'm going to plug the power lead in there, but I'm not going to plug this end in quite yet until I've got some of this other stuff in. That's the module plugged in, and that has got a picture on the goggles. So now I'm going to plug this in, and the reason I don't power this on straight away is if it doesn't get a picture or if the signal changes, it tends to crash. So we've got a Wi-Fi showing, this is all powered on. So meantime, over here on the phone, and it's pretty normal as far as this stuff goes. We need to connect to FXT DVR, and then we need to run FXT DVR, and then we need to turn it down. So you will see that we've got an image there of Yoshi. He's over here, and there's my finger. If we were to turn it around, you see we get it it's a widescreen. As far as the delay goes, there certainly is one, and we do get these little lockups sometimes, which then recovers. So certainly wouldn't fly with it. And if we turn it this way, we've then, just touching the screen, got access to some more stuff. So we've got a setup screen, and say what's on the SD card. They're about vaguely useful in terms of the app version, but it doesn't show you the firmware version. And then we've got a bunch of controls here. So this first one is showing you can play from the device to your phone, and the file type is either a picture or a movie. So for example, here's some movies I took earlier, and I could either download that directly to my phone, delete it, or play it back, which would obviously play it back. Oh, let's come back to the beginning. So there's me flying around indoors, and I'll show you this footage a bit later. So you'll also notice down here it's got the resolution, which is 720 by 480 here, and the frames saying 31. We've also got this button which says we can view the videos actually on the phone itself, which is a little bit slightly pointless. This next one here actually does a recording, and you can see we've got a flashing symbol there, and if we look here you should also see that our DVR is flashing to indicate it's recording. And if I have a quick wave in front there, if I then press that button again, that will stop. And now if I say I'd like to play that, there's our not very exciting file of Yoshi. We've also got slightly less useful things, I think. So this button here will make it take a picture. This one will record directly to the phone, which is fine, but the problem with that is, of course, it's very easy for the phone to skip frames. So yeah, that's the live Wi-Fi image and the app interface. And you can actually, it says connect up to 3 devices to it, so you can have lots of people watching. In terms of how well it works, I'll show you some footage next of I did flying around inside that I hinted of earlier. And then we'll go out and we'll do some proper outside flying and see how it does. So here we are flying indoors with a little Mobia. And what I'm going to do is flick between the normal Fat Shark DVR and the FXT DVR with a slight explanation that although the native resolution of the resulting file in the FXT DVR was 720 by 480, which is widescreen for NTSC, Final Cut Pro seems to want to put them on at the same size, so I've had to do a little bit of stretching manually in my video editor to make them look right. If I look on my desktop exactly how they look natively, you can see one's wider than the other, but when I put these side by side in my video editor and say display them normally, they both come out as the same size, which is really weird, and I don't really get it, but ignore that fact. The point is that this does record properly in the widescreen aspect ratio if you're using widescreen goggles, which I'm using the Dominator V3s. If you've got 4.3 goggles, it'll of course come out in 640 by 480 or 640 by 576 on PAL. More about that later. So I've struggled a little bit with the best way of showing this, because when I looked at this at home, I was like, wow, that is silky smooth. Those 60 frames per second really do make one hell of a difference. The quality, it's on par, it looks slightly better, but it's the silky smoothness you really do notice. But I did some test footage of this, and I put the 2 files side by side, the DVR and Fat Sharks versus FXT, and I uploaded to YouTube, and then I had a look at that, and it was much harder to tell the difference. So if you're thinking, oh, well, I can't really see much of a difference here, I'd say 2 things. First off, I'm going to link to both of these files, the DVR from the Fat Sharks and the one from FXT. I'll have a link down below. So please feel free to download them and have a look at the non-YouTubed bits, because obviously they'll look better quality. But again, I should say that if you're thinking, actually, this would be really cool to download to YouTube, don't forget that YouTube will mash it up a bit. But you at least still do get those 60 frames per second, and they do look a lot better. So I don't know what's best. If I put them windows alongside each other, it's hard to tell. If I do one of one and one of the other, it's much more noticeable but harder to compare. Maybe if I do like a vertical slice like this, it might look better. I don't know what the best way is. But the FXT recording does look really nice, I have to admit. It's on a whole new level of how it looks in comparison with the regular DVR. And all the time I was flying around, I was actually filming the camera, streaming the Wi-Fi link, because I wanted to see how usable it is to view. Or I've already said you can't fly with it because it does these little hang-ups occasionally. But even viewing, it gets the odd thing where it just goes for a second or two. Now, to be fair, the phone is about 1 foot away from a Wi-Fi router, which also does 5.8, although I'm flying on a channel that obviously doesn't interfere, but it may be having an impact on some of the data transfer. But when I'm further away from the router, I'm also getting hang-ups. So it's okay. It seems to have its little problems though, where it keeps sort of losing the stream and having to recover it. But in terms of like for casual looking at a screen, it's pretty good, I suppose. You don't have to have any hardware and stuff. You just have to install an app and connect it to a Wi-Fi link, and you can look at stuff on your phone. And obviously there's both an Android and an iOS version available. So after flying inside, I eventually had a very small weather window. The weather in the last couple of weeks in the UK here has been outrageously bad. We've had storms and 60-mile-an-hour winds for weeks. And so I managed to get out, and I'm flying the Comet here because I thought this is a great little camera in that one, and it really shifts around, and I wanted to see how this looked in 60 frames a second. And what you can see here is the Fat Shark goggle version, and if you're wondering where the FXT version is, it doesn't exist. I don't know why. I pressed a button, and to be fair, that little blue light is pretty difficult to see in daylight, but I cupped my hand over it and I was pretty sure it was flashing. But when I got home, I have absolutely zero footage of the FXT recording, and I just double checked this home, made sure I could record through it. There's not a problem as shown here, and it's all fine. So I don't know what happened there. It could be me, it could be the device telling me it's recording when it's not. I don't know. I'm wondering if it might be worth using the app to start and stop recording so there's more of a sort of visual thing on the screen there, but who knows. Anyway, moving on, because I took 2 quads there. I took the Comet because it was like a fast quad and lots of fun. I also took my Nebula because it had a proper widescreen camera on it. So let's flick to that one now. Okay, here we are flying the Nebula, and the colours are a bit weird, aren't they? This is the CMOS for you. It's all a little bit different and strange, but still a pretty good camera. And I like the sort of the native widescreen format. It was the first camera, which is also an FXT one, by the way, which I thought actually this widescreen thing's pretty good. You actually seem to see a bit more. So let's see what this looks like on the FXT DVR. Can you see the problem? Yeah, it's chopped off some of my OSD. Now this is weird because again I looked back at the native file and I can see this is 720 by 576 because this is a PAL camera, or it's set to be PAL, so it's recording those extra lines. NTSC is 480, PAL is 576, but it seems to have also stretched the picture out bizarrely, and thus it's cut off the bottom, which is a real shame because all my outside footage of this so far is this one file I've got, which doesn't show the recording very well. So I was wondering, is this a problem with just this quad, or is this a problem with PAL cameras? So I went ahead and I found my B-Fight 210, which also has a PAL camera, and I did a quick clip of that, and lo and behold, This also has a problem with PAL, some of the information dropping off the bottom. Although the recordings look great in terms of the smoothness from the 60 frames a second, there's a bit of a problem using PAL cameras at the moment. These are firmware upgradable, and hopefully this can be solved sometime in the future. So, not perfect by any means. In fact, you have a device which is both revolutionary but clunky in the way it works. I mean, there's a lot of things that could be done better. The fact it doesn't have its own battery and you need to plug in power. The other thing was quite annoying, that if you left it plugged in while you changed the battery and thus got static, the whole system would reboot and crash, and you'd lose your connection for Wi-Fi. This thing would reboot and potentially lock up. That could be better. The movie files that get stored to the SD card, if I put those in my Mac says no, can't play that. I could go onto VLC and VLC would detect a certain broken AVI frames and fix it for me. And to be fair, if you're on Windows it would play it, but I think there's some issues in that. I mean, you can get around it by simply pulling it onto your phone and then pushing it from your phone onto your computer if you're me and you've got a Mac. That's a way around it, but maybe something to be looked at. And of course PAL doesn't seem to work from this. Despite that, I have to say that the output you can get from it is the best I've seen on any DVR so far. It's just a shame it's got a little bit of catching up to do on the software development and perhaps the hardware development. So if it had an internal battery, if there's some way of plugging it in a bit better, it'd be a lot easier to use. Thanks very much as well to Rid at License to Drive. He has a YouTube channel, linky around there somewhere, and he's done a lot of work with deinterlacing things and video stuff, and he's been working for quite a while on using the output from the Fat Sharks with different capture devices and laptops to get deinterlaced 60 frames per second, and has got some amazing results from it. But of course, having a laptop is a big thing. This is a smaller thing. But he was able to look at the raw footage from me, and he noticed there was an issue with the file as well. He said they split out the two fields of the interlaced frame and doubled their height, which result in the picture continually jumping up and down by a single pixel. So it's not quite being deinterlaced right. That said, I've looked at it really closely. I can't see the wobble. I don't doubt it's there, but the resulting files are really good. So it's a bit of a, it depends what you're looking for. If you're looking for the best possible footage you can get from a DVR, this will do the job right now. You've just got a lot of caveats with it, and I'm hoping there's going to be a bunch of firmware updates which will fix the problems. I'm going to be obviously telling this to FXT and saying if you can fix these things, it'll be a lot better. And mainly it's getting PAL working and being able to handle static and not like rebooting and stuff. I think all the other stuff we can live with, but I'll be updating if they manage to do that. In the meantime, of course, discount from FXT, and there'll be a link down below where you can find it. I hope this video has been helpful, and I will see you in the next one. Bye for now. Well, you've made it to the end of the video, so thanks once again for watching. If you like what you saw, then please consider subscribing, and if you really like what you saw, then be sure to check out the link to my blog for a variety of ways in which you can help support this channel.